So let me be clear. Safety and security, peace and prosperity, it's all on the ballot in November. Joining me now for reaction, civil rights attorney Leo Terrell, along with Republican Congressman Doug Collins and Michael Waltz. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here. I want to start with you, Congressman Collins, because the way the president's laid it out, it is a clear choice between lawlessness for the Democrats and law and order from President Trump's stamp. How do you see it?
It's very clear, Jason. I mean, look at it. I hope that Chairman Nadler from the Judiciary Committee is actually watching this show tonight because, you know, he claimed that Antifa was imaginary and just being made up. And that's not exactly what's happening. We see it being played out in the streets across this country where the civil unrest is turning into violence with people taking things into their own hands, trying to rewrite history, trying to push a leftist agenda. And it is coming from folks like Antifa and people who have no regard for the civil order of our society. President Trump made it very clear. Civil disobedience in protesting in a proper form is what he protects. But when we go to attacking statues, when we go to attacking history, when we just go for the sake of violence, that is not what we're about, and it has to end. And there's a clear choice between a president who's willing to put the American people first and Joe Biden, who is hiding in the basement.
Leo, I want to get your reaction to what Congressman Collins said, because there is a right way and a wrong way to do things. Protesting is the American way of doing things, but when it turns to a riot and you start tearing things down because you just want to, and it turns to violence, but I see the left, I see the Democrats moving towards lawlessness. They seem to support this. That's my perception of the message that they're portraying to America.
Your perception, the congressman's perception, is absolutely right. I'm going to be honest. As a Democrat, the Republicans and President Trump want law and order. It's very clear. That's why the monument of Andrew Jackson was not destroyed. The Democrats are beholden to these extremist groups, and I would submit to you there are law-abiding Democrats who are sitting on their hands. I'm telling you, Democrats, call your lawmakers, because right now, Black Lives Matter and these extremist group Antifa are controlling Democratic leadership, and they're not speaking out in favor of law and order. One final point. You saw that city of Seattle CHOP zone, which was totally a extremist organization. That young man on Hannity, that father who lost his son, I didn't see Al Sharpton, I didn't see Black Lives Matter about that young man. What I'm telling you is very simple. The Democrats are not addressing law and order. 99.9% of people in this country want law and order except Antifa and Black Lives Matter. It's ridiculous.
Congressman Waltz, this used to be an easy thing. This used to be the thing that we could get together and be unified behind. But now it's become this divisive issue, and I see the Democrats trying to appease these far radical left factions that I think the most of America can't even relate to.
Yeah, Jason, I just want to talk a moment about this group Antifa. You know, as a Green Beret, I've fought against terrorist groups all over the world. We take an oath to defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And the president's right. This is a domestic terrorist group. The definition of terrorism is to try to achieve political objectives through violence and through destruction. I'm glad to see these leaders brought to justice, but I've asked and urged the Attorney General through a letter to go a step further. I want to get to the bottom of the funding. I want to get to the bottom of who's behind these groups. I don't buy for a minute looking at their command and control, their communication, their standardized tactics, how they're operating all over the country, hijacking peaceful protests. I don't buy for a second that this is just some grassroots movement of Starbucks baristas, that are suddenly operating in this kind of fashion. So I think we need to go a step further and begin dismantling this group. I'm glad to see the FBI using its counterterrorism task force. But we cannot stand as a country, as Americans, not Republicans and Democrats, as Americans for this type of destruction and this type of violence, and it has to stop.
Okay, I've got a short amount of time, but I want each of you, starting with Congressman Collins, what do you say to the men and women who are actually serving and their families that are at home, knowing that they're going out into these destructive, violent types of situations? What do you say to those men and women, and why would anybody actually join law enforcement at this point?
Well, as the son of a Georgia State trooper, I know what it's like to send a family member out because he went out for 32 years, and I watched him, and I was so proud of him. And even when he came home after a really tough days, it is saying that people are still behind us. There's congressmen and women, there's people all over this country that stand behind our law enforcement, and they want to see us safe in civil society, and they know that it stands with those who are willing to go out and put.
Leo, what do you say to those men and women, Leo?
I say to every law enforcement officer in these Democratic cities, Chicago, LA, Baltimore, and Atlanta, please keep doing your work. I know you have a difficult time with these Democratic lawless mayors, but please keep doing your work because we need you to protect us.
Congressman Waltz.
Yeah, Jason, I want to be very clear here to the men and women in blue that are out there tonight. I want you to hear me that I have your back. We have your back. And if any politician doesn't say that to you, fire him, vote him out of office. 99.999% of them are strapping on that badge and strapping on that belt every night to get between the bad guys and our communities to keep us safe. I have your back, and I thank you, and God bless you. And to everybody, let's have a great Independence Day and celebrate what it means to be an American in this great country.
All three of you, thank you. Have a wonderful 4th of July. I appreciate the message, and I hope those men and women in blue, they understand how much we love and care for them. So thank you, all three of you. All right, straight ahead.